all right. All right, looks like we're back live. This is Senate Education, 3 o'clock on Wednesday, May 12th. Continuing our conversation on S13 and coming up with thinking about witnesses, thinking about additional conversations that we need to have over the next couple of days. We know that this is coming back to us with draft legislation and that it would still take legislative action, of course, to move anything forward. Mr. Desmarais, do I have that correct? Still in that form?
You do.
Yep, great. Okay, Senator Persler.
One thing that we talked about when you were gone, the House had struck language that we had on page 5 about recommend to have tuition rates for non-operating school districts and tech centers. And I think we kind of, maybe it seems like we didn't really need to talk about the non-operating school districts, but I wanted to maybe talk about the tech centers. So I don't know if thinking about people to hear from, I don't know if there's somebody that could talk about tech centers in particular. And then the other thing, I wondered if we want to hear from Ms. Colby, and specifically about the changes that they made about at the very beginning, those number 1 and 2 of the powers and duties of the task force. Because I think those are big changes. Yeah. And so I think it's just something that we should talk to her. Maybe there's others that can just lay out, what the 2 things are, so that we're just making a decision with our eyes wide open.
That's a good idea. Okay, I'll have Jeannie reach out to Dr. Colby and others. Senator Chinden.
So another concern that was circling while you were gone, Chair Campion, has to do with the moratorium. And one thing I heard is that the moratorium currently does not affect many school districts proportionally, only 17 out of 100 and whatever. My concern is you remove it, and if we charge the task force with permanently removing it, then I think it would have affected, it will encourage communities to spend more. And I think there are serious implications for the affordability of Vermont. And if we don't couple that discussion about a moratorium on that spending penalty with the discussion about how to incent grand list growth, it's going to make it even harder to have the housing, to address the affordable housing that we need in a variety of our communities for people to be able to live and be able to stay in Vermont without paying even more in property taxes to unaffordable rates. So I'm concerned that the moratorium, removing it or even lifting it for a short period of time, will have some negative unanticipated consequences of driving up spending, making it even more expensive to live in Vermont.
Where did the number 17 come from, Mark?
It just happens to be the number of districts that would exceed the excess spending threshold in 2020.
In 2020, okay.
It's been growing. It was
Yeah.
10 in the current year we're in, FY21, so it's grown to 17.
Yeah.
So
If you take it off, is that a license for communities to just start charging up the credit card or the property taxpayer? Okay.
I just think I agree. I think this is a really difficult time to for any of this, with all of the funding that's coming in to schools, to try to hold something in place that that occurred before the pandemic, and now we're getting into a recovery mode. Was there any discussion about that in the House committee?
not that I remember, no.
Because I'm just thinking that the excess spending piece might well be covered by some federal dollars. I don't know, so it's hard to predict.
Mm-hmm. Senator Hooker?
Would those federal dollars that were spent even be considered as excess spending? How does that figure and how does that?
Mm-hmm.
If it had it, oops, I'm sorry.
Please. No, please go ahead.
If it had any impact, it would be reducing the district's overall spending, which might bring them down underneath
Bring
the
them
threshold.
down.
So
Okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah.
And so, so if that's the case, then they don't need to have a moratorium on excess spending.
Right.
Right, and there's some evidence that that's already happened this year. I mean, spending only grew this year by 1.3%, which is
Oh,
half of inflation, the lowest increase I've seen since the Great Recession. So it's unusually low.
yeah, it's not that we want to penalize schools, but if there's no need to do this, then to let a dose of reality set in about what actual costs are. And the federal government may be covering it, but nevertheless, it takes us a step forward,
Right.
I think.
So it's always more problematic in the House because I'm not sure who pointed it out, but senators usually have districts that go over it or under it, and the same thing with the weighting study. They have districts
Yep.
that win and lose, but in the House you have a much smaller constituency, sometimes one district, so one school system. So it has a
Yes,
more direct impact in the House. It's a tougher issue there.
you're right. Tough.
Yeah, Senator Chinden.
Just a quick follow-up, $1.4 million is $1.4 million. And when we start talking about the ed fund, that's real money that is needed. So I do think the moratorium deserves a little more discussion to understand how the House got to where we are or to where they landed.
Yeah, I'll work on lining up some witnesses tomorrow, as well as having Dr. Colby in. And I'll talk with Senator Cummings, since, it's really I think in part the excess spending moratorium that really gets this to her committee some way along the process. So it's one of those things that we can take it out. Are they going to add it back? And that is rather go into that, as I know everybody would, with eyes wide open, and get a sense from her. And so hopefully what I can convince her to do is kind of do some of this work over the next couple of days simultaneously with us, so we can all get to a good point maybe by Friday and advance this back to them, or call a committee of conference, or something like that. Yeah.
Wasn't there for the testimony over the last couple of days, but I believe that the desire to spend the excess spending penalty was originated from Rep. Kornheiser
Okay.
on Ways and Means.
We could have her in. That'd be great. I really appreciate that. That's very helpful. So we can hear from Emily tomorrow. Okay, so this is going to probably take up the next couple of days, along with I think we are on hold in a way with 115. In other words, I think we've got a pretty good path forward on 115 with further proposal of amendment, but let's just see what the House is going to do on some of our stuff to see if we need to hold on to this and add anything else. But for now, Jim, I think with 115, if you could start to draft a committee amendment, or all of our names, we don't have possession, in which would just add the diversity language and the language for the state board. And we would do that when we're ready to go with 115.
Yep, we'll do.
Okay. But yeah, it sounds like right now, this in particular is going to be the bill that might take a little extra time. 13. Okay, any other questions? I'll work on witness lists for tomorrow with Jeannie, and we'll spend the afternoon just pretty much working on this. Yeah, Senator Lyons.
So I've been trying to sort out timing on getting things back over to the House, because we've got a couple things we're working on in our committee.
Yeah.
And so just a question that we need to ask. We want to wrap, I guess. I mean, I'm thinking about the bills that I have. I have and possible another bill that is coming over to us.
Yeah, so
It's
it's a great
so
point.
tight.
Yeah, no, I love these kinds of questions and love thinking about this. Honestly, I think if we were to, concur with 115 with further proposal amendment, I would want the House to be on board. In other words, once it gets to them, we're good. And then with this, hopefully by Friday, we'll have a sense from Senator Cummings what their committee is interested in, and then we could move things. I at least get it out of our committee at the very least by Friday. Gives us a little time to get it done and on the floor, and gives the House a little time to prepare for whatever they might want to do. And it might, in conversations between finance and with House Edit, this one might be the one that goes to committee of conference, and it might go to the committee of conference sooner rather than later if we need to do that. And then, House has school construction, which of course has radon on it, and the House has S100, and we are sending H106 back to them probably early next week. So H106, I know they're gearing up with hopefully to concur, but your questions are great. I talked to Bloomer yesterday, always in a pinch. If we have rule suspensions from our Republican friends, we can do anything in a day. And we've done that before if need be, but nobody likes that feeling at the end of things being rushed.
Well, just knowing how important the waiting piece is to our constituents, it feels like a real priority for me. It would be great if the House could, we could get together with the House. Let's put it that way. Yeah. It's tough.
Senator Chittenden.
Yeah, so on this moratorium thing that I've been talking too much about this afternoon, I think I just need to understand how the House came to this conclusion. And I'm sure the rationale, I haven't heard it yet. So that's
no, I appreciate this. I really do. And we'll have Jeannie will reach out to Representative Kornheiser, and we'll have her in tomorrow, and we'll hear more about it, and we'll see how you're feeling, honestly. So, okay. Anything else? Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.